Okay, if you are ready. So I just wanted to let you know that we have just drawn attention of our fellow members of the Security Council to the situation in Moldova, namely about the detention of the leader of the Gagauzian autonomy in Moldova, Mrs. Yevgenia Gutsul, who is a famous also opposition politician, a meaningful politician. This is not the first case when the Moldovan authorities harass political opposition in this country. We are far from interfering into the internal affairs of Moldova, and we do not call for members of the Council to do so. But the Council has a preventive function, and we think that in line with this preventive function, we should do our best to avoid a situation when the state of affairs in Moldova move to very bad and unstable situation. I don't want to speculate on this, but the development is very troubling. It goes into the context of the recent elections, presidential elections in this country, which were largely contested and proceeded in a very controversial atmosphere. It also is adjacent to a number of provocations against Transnistria. The situation in Romania, neighboring Romania, is also raising a lot of brows because of banning of the leading candidate to run for the election. So the whole region is not stable, and we just thought it our responsibility to raise the awareness of the members of the Council to this absolutely intolerable situation. In this regard, I think, well, on the ground, we are not on the ground there, but we think that the collective action, collective position of international actors and their support of stability and national dialogue and inclusiveness in Moldova might play a role. This country is facing parliamentary elections in upcoming summer, and of course the situation shouldn't be destabilized in run-up to this election. So I think it's our duty as a traditional friend of Moldova. You know that there are a lot of Russian speakers in Moldova, and this country is very much divided, having a lot of ethnic and religious minorities. So we have to really be vigilant and to warn everybody about potential dangers of this unfortunate event, the arrest of one of the key opposition figures of Moldova.
Can I ask you about the Black Sea? Is there, obviously the US and Russia are discussing this possible ceasefire in the Black Sea, and Russia has laid out its conditions for that. Do you think there is a role for the UN to play in any kind of deal, given the past history with regard to the Black Sea?
I think that the UN has tried to do its best in terms of implementation of the second part of the Grain Deal. You recall that it consisted of two different processes. One is Grain Sea Initiative, which was implemented until a certain moment. And then there was also the memorandum between Russia and the UN about the access of Russian agriculture and fertilizers to the international markets. And this memorandum was not implemented, not because UN was not active. Ms. Greenspan and Secretary Guterres were acting in good faith, and they tried to do a lot, but they were facing the intransigent position of Western countries who didn't want to lift sanctions because of this. So now we think that there is a window of opportunity for this part of the deal to be implemented, and then it will bring us to the moment when we can, in good faith, implement the whole kind of grain deal. So let's view it in this regard. Of course, UN efforts were not in vain and will not be in vain, but so far the framework of implementation of this agreement is bilateral.
Ceasefire in the Black Sea? Everything seems to have been fairly calm there.
Is there
a need for a ceasefire deal, given that it seems to have been kind of calm?
Well, ceasefire deal is part of this package, let's put it this way, and it will enter into force when these conditions are met, and this is very much in power of those who take the decisions right now about the crisis in Ukraine.
if I'm not wrong, Russia has never sold as much grain as now. So what's the interest for Russia to go and for a ceasefire deal on the Black Sea initiative?
Well, first of all, we are a peaceful country. We have been always advocating for peace. And since the beginning of the Ukrainian crisis, we were always saying that democracy and diplomacy should prevail. So we are interested, of course, in peaceful coexistence with all our neighbors, provided these neighbors do not represent a threat for us. And this is the case of cooperation within the Black Sea region. Normally, there wouldn't be any problem for a ceasefire, but you know that unfortunately the Ukrainian Black Sea ports are used for activities against Russian objects in the Black Sea and in surrounding areas. So of course this all must stop for us to be implementing this kind of arrangement. And again, the ceasefire in Black Sea region is only part of this arrangement, which is about Russian agricultural products coming to European markets. You know that we have a very big potential there, and there are a lot of countries who are interested. Especially fertilizers is also a separate field of our cooperation with African countries, for example, which are very much interested in this. But there are a lot of hurdles in this regard which can be removed, and it's quite easy to remove them. One of the main hurdles is, of course, the transactions, which we can't make in the way that they should be made for those countries who are interested in Russian agriculture and other products. So again, the wind is blowing, and it's a backwind, but we need to get use of this wind and to understand what we can do. And if the other side is acting in good faith, I think that we can really see the rebirth of this initiative quite soon.
Mr. Ambassador, on another subject, on the Black Sea agreement that was reached, do you see a role for the United Nations in implementing this deal and doing inspections of ships as they did in the original deal, and perhaps something else?
I think we are not at this stage yet to discuss the concrete parameters of the implementation of the deal. As far as I understand, after several years of attempts by the United Nations, which were made in good faith in terms of the memorandum between Russia and the UN, now it's the time for the US to step in and to try to put its weight behind the implementation of these very important agreements, important for the whole world. So I'm not aware of any arrangements that could bring UN within this deal. They had the mechanism which was monitoring the ships that were coming to Ukrainian ports. It didn't work quite satisfactory. We had a lot of things to reproach there, so maybe the new mechanism will be more successful, provided, of course, it comes to the implementation of this deal, because so far as I understand, the European and Ukrainian side are totally rejecting any possibility of lifting, partial lifting of sanctions from the entities that are involved, from Russian entities that are involved in the implementation of this deal. So keeping fingers crossed, but so far a lot of questions in the air.
Ambassador, can I ask you about, there's some reports that there's a Russian computer scientist from Harvard who I think she was detained in February. She's being held in an ICE facility in Louisiana for deportation to Russia. Do you know anything about that?
I haven't heard about it, sorry.
And then President Trump's just withdrawn Elise Stefanik's nomination as UN ambassador. Do you have any reaction to that? Is not the US not having an ambassador appointed here hindering the work anymore?
We were sad to hear this because we were already thinking about her as our colleague, but it's of course the sovereign right of the United States president to appoint whoever he wants to be a UN ambassador. So I think that's internal position of the United States, where we will wait for any representative, and we will be ready to engage and to work with any US representative whom the US president chooses to represent his country here in the United Nations.
If I could just follow up on that, Ambassador, but the Russian Federation has been working a lot closer with the United States on several issues in the last few months. How important would it be delegation to have some clarity at the UN mission moving forward in terms of, is it hindering any work with the U.S. here at the UN, given that there isn't clarity on the permanent representative yet?
I wouldn't say that our current U.S. colleagues are doing something that we are not satisfied with in terms of openness and contacts. We interacted quite closely with the current chargé d'affaires, Dorothy Shi, on the issues related to Ukraine and on the issues related to Syria. You know that there was a presidential statement adopted recently on the developments in Western Syria. So our US colleagues are very forthcoming, but I know myself that of course the mission should be complete, and the head of the mission is a very important figure. She or he will be a political figure, and that's why we understand that it will reinforce further the US mission here. But I don't have anything to reproach to our US colleagues, and can't say that they are not responding or they are not cooperating. They are acting in good faith, and they are very forthcoming in terms of what we can do together recently. Okay? Thank you very much, everybody. Thank you.